Ha! Look, I suck already. All right, can you hear me? I'm just trying to send out the invite for everybody. Let's see. How do I? Okay. So hop on in, man. Get on in here. Let's talk. How do I do this? Yeah, no, that was dumb. Go back, go back, go back. All right, so today I plan on watching Dark of All Trades and getting into some of his stuff. I'm gonna invite some more people in, let some people come to the channel. But basically, I want to go ahead and react to some anti-theist videos. I need to figure out how to do watch together or how to put videos into the stream. It'd be great if B.S. Lewis would actually come in here since he's done this before. But I get it. You know, atheists are scared of great popular theists such as myself. Let's see. So I did do this. Yeah. I did do this actually yesterday. With Discord, and it actually worked a little bit better. But the problem with not with Discord, I'm sorry, with OBS. But the problem with OBS is that it did not do what I wanted it to do. It didn't let me have other people join. I wanted other people to join in. So anyway, all right.
Shalom.
Okay. Why can't I hear you?
I'm here. Hello. Hello. Nope. Nobody can hear me. Hello. There I am.
Talk.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, nothing's coming through. How do I make you louder? Okay. All right. If you can
I'm
unmute
here.
yourself, man, or something, because there's no sound coming through on your end. I don't know why.
I'm working on YouTube. You can hear me on YouTube. You have headphones, maybe? Maybe you're on headphones. Put on your headphones.
YouTube hears you. Right, let's check that out.
Put on your headphones.
Go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Is there anybody out there?
Yo.
Just say if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
There you go. You had the headphones plugged in. Rookie mistake, Alpha. What's going on?
I am more than a rookie, my friend.
No, I've been there. I'm still there. I do that all the time.
So I actually tried doing this last night as just kind of like a like let's just fucking get it done. Oh, sorry for all the Christians out there who are gonna jump in on this. I cuss, so get over it. The I did it on OBS, and OBS worked amazing, but it didn't let me put my live feed into the menu option. So like no one knew I was live. So it was broadcasting on YouTube, but it was buried, and I couldn't let other people in. And I want to do like a watch together thing. So today I'm trying StreamYard. I'm gonna try different services until I find one that works. You know.
Well, I can help you with StreamYard. I'm pretty good at that. That's the only one I use. So, and you're on PC. The only thing I have with mine with mobile, I use mobile on a tablet, and they don't let you screen share. So I always have to have somebody do all the navigating for me whenever I stream. But that's the only really big hang up I've noticed anyway.
Well, for one thing, I miss Gar. You know, I miss the live streams. That was really fun. I did that for 4 years with you guys, and I'll be honest. Even though I went to other people's channels, I don't think I ever had as much fun as I had on Gur. So I really liked. I really want to do that on my own. You know, now that he's not doing it.
Yeah, there's a big shaped hole in my heart.
There is for me too. And then I just quit my job a week ago, so I'm gonna have more time to do this. So like, I want to do it. You know, am I echoing or am I good?
You're good on my end. Let me turn up YouTube, see if. No, you sound good on YouTube too. One pro tip is that if you tap on that comment I left about mute, you can take that off because we've got that whole thing settled now. So
Okay.
I have to be reminded about that too because I'll just leave stuff up there for the whole stream. It's like, oops, oh yeah, hey.
Okay, how do I copy the link? All right, I'm gonna put this in Facebook and on Twitter. I was going to do a live stream or simulcast to Facebook. I mean, to Facebook, to YouTube and Twitch, but I don't think I'm prepared enough for Twitch yet. I mean, if I'm sucking ass this bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll consider this a practice run.
Yeah. My second attempt.
It takes some work. Like I said, I'm not the pro here. I actually had to have Gur hold my hand through a lot of stuff. So it's an art form. It's definitely different than scripted material. I'll tell you that. I'm much more comfortable being scripted than I am live and trying to run the show while you're also being entertaining, talking to people at the same time.
Well, I got my little Stream Deck thing that I had for editing. I've been using Adobe, so my videos have gotten better. I used to use knockoff Adobe, I guess. Back in the day, it was like some kind of free tech that worked just like it. But then that app disappeared and I got a job. So, but back when I was getting like 50,000 views of video, that's what I was using. I was editing all my stuff. But that era of YouTube is just gone. Like even my best edited video now doesn't get over 100 views, or maybe at max 300 views. So streaming is just the way it is now. It's no one's doing this. Morning, Sandals.
It's a little depressing for me. I think with the way content is in the atheist sphere, I can't speak for the Christian sphere. It's reaction videos all the way, and I think that's low hanging fruit. I know they're entertaining, and I watch them. But for my content, I don't want to do that. I want to do something that makes me stand out as a creator, apart from the pack.
Well, the theist and Catholic stuff, it's not on YouTube anymore. It's gone. There are some YouTube Catholics and Christians still, but their channels are stagnant. It's now all on TikTok. They're all doing TikTok debates, and the old guard is not popular at all. And these are people who they're actually just retreading the early anti-theist theist debates back from like 5 years ago, 7 years ago here on YouTube. You know, like just after what's his name? Atheism is Unstoppable got banned. Like just after that period, that's like what they're doing on TikTok, and they're acting like it's new. And I asked one of them, I asked as an atheist, I asked one of them like a hard question. They had nothing. They like just had the church fathers. I'm like, I gave that answer 6 years ago. Come on, guys, move on.
So I saw that you you commented to get my attention on my debate notification comment. Did you happen to
Yes,
check out any of the debate at all?
about 5 minutes worth. I didn't watch enough of it. I skimmed. What is it? Scrubbed through it. So
The
you were playing a Jewish person? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, so Nara has the idea that he wants atheists to start debating theistic topics.
As the theist, to like,
Yeah. And so it was, is Jesus the Messiah? And Ember was playing the Christian, I was playing the Jew. And
how do you
I
think you
think
did?
I think I crushed it. I lost the debate by popular vote on the poll,
Mhm.
but I am salty right now. So I know Sandals is the only one here. I know Sandals saw the debate, but I came prepared. I crushed it when it came to verses and stuff. And Ember, I couldn't even tell what type of Christian Ember was trying to mock or
Mhm.
to be. It would have been the vaguest of progressive universalists, if any type of Christian. And Ember ended up winning the debate by popular vote, but never even threw out a verse. Not one verse in the whole debate on the Christian side. And I was like, it threw me off my guard because I was like, I was all ready for the back and forth of, well, here's Isaiah 53, here's Psalm 22, and like, and none of that even happened. So I was just like, what do I talk about? Like, I don't know. And then he's more charismatic because he's a streamer, or they're a streamer, and I'm just like, sitting on my thumb the
Well,
whole time.
I mean, so I'm switching to selling insurance. That's what I'm going to be doing from now on, at least for the immediate future. So I'm going to have more time to do this. And I was like, do I spend time redeveloping my or reshaping my YouTube channel, or do I just move on to Twitch and start grinding and doing video games and stuff? Because I'm old. I'm not doing like so hot on YouTube anymore. I'm not as popular as I once was. I never hit it in the big time. But it's like there's so much more that I want to talk about, not just in religion, but in philosophy and theology that I don't want to let this YouTube channel go. I realize I have other channels where I could put way more content. Like I could just document my weight loss and put that stuff out there till I get in shape. I can do all that stuff. But this is where my passion is. This is where my fun is. Like I'd rather have these conversations that are engaging than just promote myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't be on YouTube for any other thing. I think I watch some of these like how to grow your channel channels. I don't know if
Mhm.
you watch any of those, and
Yeah, too many.
yeah, and I think that I would be able to be successful at a faceless channel doing some other kind of content, but I already have a very, or not very, but a rather successful in real life job,
Mhm.
and this is just my hobby, and this is my passion about the great debate sphere, and so I don't have the motivation, the passion, or whatever to actually get in there and just be like, well, here's the top 10 list of Spider-Man, faults in the latest movie, and like, yeah, whatever. Like, there's enough of that. Like, nobody needs another voice on that.
Well, I left my a good career that I could have gone another 10 years and had a good retirement, and I wouldn't have to worry about money. But my dad has Alzheimer's, and he got to the point that he just can't be left home alone.
Yep.
So I made the change. I made the leap. I didn't have to. I mean, obviously, you could put him in a nursing home. You can sell his house. You can do all these drastic things. But I don't know if it's the Catholic in me or if it's just who I am as an individual. It just didn't feel right, so I made the call. It sucks. My wife's not happy. She's back in China. She doesn't want to deal with this shit. I'm, but I'm doing this. I'm gonna be a streamer, and I'm gonna be a salesman, and I'm gonna live this life for at least the next year, if not a little bit shorter. So yeah,
Well, let me ask you, maybe this is too personal. Like,
go ahead.
is your wife from the Asian cultures? Because I know you said she is kind of,
Yeah,
is she focused on
she
Buddhism
she,
and all that?
she she's an anti-theist for Buddhism.
Yeah.
Uh, she's uh, she's asked me not to talk about where she works, but she's a top professor or a famous professor at a top university, and she is an outspoken person in her field. But when she met me, I was a writer, and she had just gotten out of a relationship with a guy who just didn't work. So she was like, "No, you got to show me that you can have a real 9 to 5." And so I took a corporate job, and the corporate job was awesome. It's not what I wanted. It's not who I wanted to be, and that's part of. Even though the income was good and the job was good and security was good, when this happened with my dad, I just saw it as a way out. I'm in debt now. Like I had no debt when I got my job. I'm in debt. I'm not okay. Like I have to like push forward, but I feel great about. I feel better about myself now that I've done this dramatic step. So
Well, I asked the question about our culture because I thought the Asian cultures were big on the multi-generational family
yeah,
taking care of family angle.
just to be really blunt, if she wasn't okay with that, I think we would be divorced. Like just to be really blunt, like the amount of stress of my dad's decline, we would be divorced if she didn't have that in her culture, in her mentality. So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, he took a big decline this year with his Alzheimer's. It really hit him, or this past year. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it sucks.
Well, it kind of blows me away because I live in a area that has a pretty big East Indian culture, and they're the same way with family taking care of family, and they'll pool together and have uncles and aunts living together, but they're living in like a giant mansion, all pooling resources,
Mhm.
and
No,
I
she
get that. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say she made me the offer to take my dad to China, but in his condition, I just feel him not being able to communicate. His first language is Spanish, so he's already in a second language here. Take him to a third language with a culture that he doesn't know, which is a walking culture, and he can't walk in his current condition. I'm like that. That would just be torture, in my opinion. Of course, I haven't done it, so I don't know. But to
Yeah,
me, I don't think it's a good move to move him to China, just so that way we can have a family structure to care for him. So.
got it. Yeah, it's just yeah, old parent decline is tough.
Mm.
Um, I had my father passed away. It's been a while now, but my mom basically took care of it. I wasn't, well, I was in my 20s, so I guess I was kind of grown, but you're not really kind of grown in your 20s either, right? So
Yeah.
um, I didn't have to deal with a lot of that. Uh,
I wish I didn't have to deal with it, to be honest with you. My entire life plan before I got my corporate gig was to be published. I was already sending my books off to publishers. I'd already gone through the rejection process. I reached what they called stage three, or the third step in getting published with two different publishing houses. So I was right on the verge of having a different career. And then my wife, because of her previous relationship, was just like, I can't marry you if you're not working a 9 to 5 job. I get that this other stuff is work. I get it's income, but I don't feel secure if that's what you're doing with your future. Flip to now, I do this dramatic thing. And she's like, no, I don't want to deal with your dad's situation, your financial situation. You're fine. You're good. Like, we're good. We're still married. We're nothing, like, there's nothing bad between us, but I can't help you take care of your dad because the stuff that you're doing is it's like traumatic to me. You know what I mean? Like her, I have to bathe them, I have to feed them, I have to do all that kind of stuff, and
mhm.
and it's just it's still too much for anyone, not just for her. So that's why they
how
have nursing homes.
how often do you guys see each other?
She left about a month ago, 2 months ago, a few months ago. Let's say 3 months max. It's shorter than that, but I've done so many huge life changes in the last few months that it might as well be.
She
Um,
was here the full time before that.
she would come. Well, she's a professor, so she would come
Yeah,
during Christmas, and she would come during summer. And so she would spend a month during Christmas, and she would spend 3 to 4 months during the summer, depending on if she had any obligations for her school. And so that's what we were doing. And then I would go to China, before the lockdown, and then I'm supposed to this year, but obviously now I'm not. I was spending about a month in China at a time. So I'd spend a month there. She'd spend about 4 months here, 5 months here.
it's a very unique situation.
Hmm. And it's to be fair. When we got married, we were planning on staying here. She went back to China to end her life there and come over here, but then she got promoted, and then she started moving up the ranks of scholarship. I think two of her books or three of her books were international bestsellers on the topic that she teaches. So that changed our lives. We went from living in a very small apartment that was about the size of my in China, to about the size of my kitchen, to an apartment that's on the 25th floor of one of the two biggest cities in China. I'm not going to say exactly where, but we're in an affluent neighborhood, and we have a good lifestyle, and we have income from royalties, and so so that's that situation there. That's not my situation here. Here I'm an out of work salesman living in a house, in a 5 bedroom house that my dad bought when I was 8. You know what I mean? So it's not the same situation.
It's pretty insane. Sounds like the makings of like a Disney movie or something, like the Prince out of Time or something. Like it could be like a Asian royalty, but you chose the more meek and meager path.
Well, there's a person who a few years ago, when I was transitioning out of doing apologetics to Muslims, that was like, I would pay Patreon money, and I think more than one person said it, but this one said it on a stream or something, to like, or in a comment, to be like, I would pay money to hear your life story. Like, just stop talking about the religion shit and just talk about all the crazy shit you've been through. And I was like, maybe one day, maybe I'll one day get an avatar, and I'll just do like life stories and try to get my friends on to like add color to the story and stuff, you know?
Well, I can do voices somewhat, so
Okay, but we were going to talk religion. We already scared off our one viewer. I was
sandals come back.
so I've been reading this. This is why I'm making the latest videos I've been making. I've been reading this, and it's been pissing me the fuck off. This is trash. I read this one initially, and it was bad. It did not have any information on Judaism. This is Oxford's the very short introduction series, um, and it was just talking about like, be kind to Jews, and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, but it's a book about Judaism. Like, could we talk about the actual religion? Okay,
That's
so
how I
then
felt in my debate earlier. I
so
get you.
So then I'm now reading this one on Christianity, and apparently there's a first edition that's more about actual Christianity, but she became a woke Christian, a progressive Christian. So she's just, I'm going to say mimicking, not even copying. She's mimicking Bart Ehrman, but her understanding of Bart Ehrman's stuff is just terrible, because I've taken his courses. I've taken a ton, by the way, not for college credit, just out of curiosity and boredom. I took in his courses. I took in a professor from Harvard, a professor from, I think, New York State. He had a lot of stuff out on Great Courses Plus and on what used to be called iTunes U. So I took all these courses. So I have a good understanding of it, just from osmosis, right? And I'm reading this book, and she's like, well, all the Gnostic texts means that there was many Christianities. And I'm like, well, the Gnostic texts are written 100 years after the core Orthodox text, right? And like, she's just not getting it. So I'm just like, I got pissed off, and I made this cool live stream last night that was great, that no one's going to see because it got buried because of the way the streaming thing worked with OBS. So I want to do this. I watched Dark's video this morning, and he gets really good by minute 10. By minute 10, he's kicking it out of the park. But the first 5-6 minutes of his video just sucked ass. So I want to be like, hey, let's do a live stream like when Gar was here, and let's just fucking like, let's attack it, and let's do it. But this time from the Christian. The Christian gets to be the one, uh, being like, hey, that's a bad argument, instead of just the atheist just piling on. So that's my whole goal. That's my whole point of doing this, is just to have some fun and watch a few watch a few videos against religion, instead of the other way around. So that's what I want to do.
I'm putting you out on a community tab. I'm not exactly super popular, but maybe we can get a few more people here to watch.
Okay, how do I do the live stream thing, man? Walk me through it. What am I doing? How am I doing this?
You have your video pulled up and another
Uh,
screen.
okay, hold on. Word, mothers.
And then you'll
Okay.
have to have another tab, and you'll have to share your screen.
Okay. Have you been watching Dark Evolved Trades, his channel in general? I think it's been growing pretty good.
I watch him regularly. I didn't see his last one because I'm sick and tired of the everybody debunking Zoomer guy.
Oh,
Because
other
like
people have been doing it too?
there have been like 20 different reviews about that video. And to be fair to Zoomer, like I watched some of his stuff pre this video, and I was actually impressed because he has a lot of videos about, well, let's talk about all the differences of the different
Mm.
denominations, or let's talk about all these. It's very scholarly, and then this piece of crap comes out, and it's like, we're to debunk the top 40 arguments for atheism, and only like 3 of them are actually about atheism in general. Many of them are just critiquing Christianity specifically.
Well, I think part of what happened, because there's like a good chunk where Dark just isn't hitting it out of the park, and I did a video on two of his poor answers earlier. I think it's not that Dark wasn't doing a good job. I think the responses that Zoomer was giving were so poor that Dark didn't have any material to hit out of the park, if that makes any sense.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
And they're just really bad in general. Like his stuff before with the other denominations and different talk about like different points of Christianity seemed well researched, and he was knowledgeable on topic. But then when it comes to this, it's like he cracked open a Frank Turek book and just gave the best answers he could give to these things, and it was embarrassing for him, and everybody like has attacked it in many different ways.
Mm.
Skeptic, Dark, Logic.
Logic did it. I'm subscribed to Logic. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen his
It
response
might have
to it.
been, yeah. I think it was Logic. Maybe it was Thursday. I don't know. One of those
Mm.
guys.
Hold,
Scarlet.
hold on. I'm going to turn on my fan real quick. It's getting hot in here. Give me a second.
So yeah. Hey everybody. I'm gonna take this moment to let you know that Christianity's fake and that you should totally be an atheist.
So I just like to let everyone watching know that there's no such thing as an atheist. All atheists are secret Christian believers.
I believe it deep down in my heart.
For those that are unfamiliar who are going to watch this stream later, I'm the most atheist theist in the world. So when I say shit like that, I really am just making fun of them. I don't actually think those things.
Yeah, and that's why you don't have any subs from any Christian subs anyway. They're
I
like
have
this guy, LARPer.
I have 1,000. I think I have 1,100 or 1,200 subs right now, and it's the majority are atheists, and then a minority of Muslims who are still waiting for me to convert. I'm like, I'm never converting to Islam. I'm sorry, it's not happening. It's not. It's just I have 4 different copies of the Quran. I got 6 different commentaries. I have tafsirs. I have hadiths. No, there's nothing in that religion for me. I'm not interested. So yeah.
Well, have you considered Judaism?
I have very, very actively. But I'm kind of not a Jew for the same reason that I'm not an Orthodox Catholic, which is they don't have a pope. If they had a
Oh
pope,
wait, go ahead.
if they had a pope, I'd be in. It'd be down. It'd be happening. But they don't have a pope, so yeah.
All right, you got Dark up. You think I'm
Okay.
just ready to go or what?
Okay. Let's redo this. Okay. I got it. Now what do I do?
Share screen. Make sure your porn's not showing.
Okay. Where do I do share screen?
It'll be at the bottom. There's an option and
Where it says presets or settings.
see, this is where I'm not familiar because I can't share a screen on the mobile. So like, but from what I believe it is kind of where you can see like share and invite people, and there should be like a subheading of a few different choices on the bottom under the windows.
Okay.
You don't see anything that shows a little TV screen or says share screen.
I see. Oh, there it is. Share screen. Okay. Don't show these tips. Share with at least 2 monitors. Screen sharing works best on a good computer. Mine's over $6,000. I think it counts. Some screen settings, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to follow steps. Let's just mess it up. Come on. Okay. There we go. Are these? Yes, yes, I do want to do that. Yes, do it. Okay.
Boom.
Is it happening? Okay.
There it is, and you got that stupid ad. I hate these ads. Like the women have like their crotches open, and then the guys walk in, they poison them, and they die.
And I love it too because technically and I always say this to people who watch my stuff. I am a Catholic, but this is not a Catholic channel. But right now we're doing Christian topics, and of course we have all this stuff. Perversity always comes in. Okay.
It's an
So,
Jack of all trades here. Now I have too many projects that I start and never finish.
You probably want to make big window or whatever. Oh, it is big window, I think already.
Yeah.
You're already on it. Good.
Okay. All right. So, any comments before we get started on Dark himself? Any ideas? Any quotes? Anything like that?
I feel weird critiquing the philosophy of philosophy teacher, but I'll try to sell it.
I really like Dark. I don't think he's the best YouTuber, but I think his channel has the potential to be much bigger than my channel will ever be. He has really good content. I do think he's going to eventually have to step away from the anti-theism and just talk about philosophy or religion in general for his channel to keep growing, because just talking religion on the internet is so saturated and it's becoming unpopular, as our channels have shown.
Indeed. Sandal says your volume on your video is low for the YouTube audience.
You're the YouTube audience. Fuck the YouTube people. Okay.
Thanks, ADHD.
Better?
It is a wonder I've lasted this long on the YouTubes. Last week, I started a video by a channel called Redeem Zoomer titled All Atheist Arguments Answered in 10 Minutes.
So what do you think about Redeem Zoomer? Any opinion on him?
Like I said, I think his stuff before these video was impressive. It was informative to learn a lot of the nuanced differences between, Presbyterian and Catholicism and Orthodox and Baptists, and stuff that could be useful for Christians and atheists alike.
The only thing I didn't like about his videos is that they felt like copies, or not even copies is the wrong term, but they felt like sanitized versions of what's going on two other major channels, Useful Charts and one called Ready to Harvest, where Useful Charts takes a secular view on the Christian. He's Jewish, but he takes a secular view on the Christian stories and the Christian histories, and he presents them from an academic standpoint, which I love. Like that's my jam. Yeah. And then Ready to Harvest, which kind of partners up with him a lot. What he'll do is he'll take the same topic and he'll re-put religious context in it, and so you get this kind of even though they're not literally working together, you get this full rounded picture between one guy's 30-minute video, one guy's 10-minute video, and I just felt like Redeem Zoomer was just taking that content and just changing it to his denominational perspective. That's what I felt. Maybe he doesn't even know that Useful Charts even exists, but that's what it felt like to me.
No, I get that. It is hard to do original stuff, obviously. Useful Charts is top tier. Useful Charts is really good.
We have a guest. I'm gonna let him in. Do you know anything about this guy named Justin before I do?
It's just Justin.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay, let's let him in. Let's see what happens. Hey, you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the show?
You're on, Justin.
Justin, you're on. Go ahead. Who are you? Okay. Well, it's a good way to get yourself booted, but I'm going to mute you. Let me know
your mic's not working, Justin. He's in the private chat. You're not even moving your lips. You have to move your lips to see if your mic's working.
Okay, I'm gonna keep you backstage, and then as soon as your stuff's working, I'll let you back in. Okay. How do I put him just backstage without kicking him out?
It'll be in the list when you go to his face or name. Okay. There you go. Remove some stage.
There we go. All right. Okay. Dustin. welcome to my channel. Introduce yourself.
Hello, name Dustin. Come from Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. Awesome. Have you watched?
Dustin.
Did he just?
Hey, Dustin, how are you?
Hey, bro.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, bro.
So, have you watched Dark of Ultrace before? Are you here for Dark? You here for me? Who you here for?
Just one talk. Friends. America. Language.
Awesome. Well, congratulations for being here. I guess I'm gonna start the video.
You wanted Gur stream, so you got it.
I got it. Gur forever. Gur lives. All right. Let's continue on with Dark. Justin, I'm gonna let you back in a second. Let me know if your audio is working.
What audio mean?
Sound.
Audio.
Oh,
Sound.
lol.
Okay. That's okay. Justin, you back? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're still not moving your lips, so you're very sci-fi right now. But how's it going, man?
Yeah, I got a disorder.
Telepathy.
Telepathy is a hell of a disorder.
Are you making fun of me?
Not yet. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and play the video. Feel free to comment anytime you want. Do you have a perspective anyway? Are you an atheist friend here? You're a Catholic or a Christian like myself?
I'm Jewish.
Ah, well, awesome. Congratulations on coming to our channel. So what do you think about Christianity and atheism?
Oh, I think it's awesome.
Do you think
Actually,
both Christianity and atheism is awesome?
Actually, fuck that. Fuck that shit.
Okay.
It's horrible, huh?
Yeah. Judaism is the way to go.
Any reason why?
I mean, shit, we got some underground tunnels.
Well, that is the truth. But I'm beginning to worry that you might not really be Jewish. Is there a reason why you think Judaism?
I'm doing
is
my
good?
mad face right now. Don't make me get madder.
Is there
Get madder? I want to see it. I want to see
you
madder.
think Judaism is truthful over atheism and Christianity? All right, well, that was fun.
That's it. That's all the extent of the trolling. Like that was weak, dude.
Yeah. We come from a channel of streaming professional trolls. Okay, so that was not very good. Let's continue on.
All right.
His title card shows that there are actually 40 arguments, which, again, fun fact, is not all atheist arguments. I have received some excellent feedback from you, my humble and no doubt of above average intelligence and attractiveness subscribers. So this week, I'm going to finish my food before I get on to dessert, which may be ice cream. I haven't decided yet. Yes, I even eat ice cream.
I do think his lame humor does hurt him just a little bit. I think he needs some better jokes. They're all dad jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he needs to collab with me. We need some farts and dick humor in there.
I don't think he needs to go edgy, but I do think his humor does need a little touch up. Sorry, Dark. I love you. If you watch this, I'm not trying to shit on you, but buddy, your jokes got to get better.
Can I make a joke about Dark before?
Go ahead.
You probably won't watch this anyway. Maybe you will. If you play like a side-by-side comparison of Dark's intros and Vice Rhinos, you'll find some similarities. I'm just saying. Hello, welcome to my channel. This is insert name here.
All right,
I think he got away from it though. But for a while he was doing that. I was like, hey, am I watching a Vice Rhino video? What's going on here?
I don't know what I was doing. It was after watching those the Calvinist guys who I debated. Well, now I'm trying to do another debate with them now. Um, they had an intro that was just whack. It was just bad, and I started using it in the intro to my videos. I did it for like 5 videos, and it was so energetic. And then like my personality is so muted that it starts off energetic, and then I'll just go. And so anyway, so here's the video.
Yeah,
I just stopped.
that's what's funny. I think about it like when people put together these epic intros with like cool music and visuals, and then you just end up seeing a guy sitting in his gaming chair. It's like this whole big build up to some guy in his basement.
Well,
And
I
it's
don't
like,
know. I don't know if you watch Reason and Theology at all, but he used to think of himself as not an apologist, but as like a counter apologist. And he had this like edgy intro, and he was like throwing meat to the rad trads and to the Eastern Orthodox Catholics. And now he's shortened that to a little pre-recorded prayer before all of his videos. And I get that he's trying to stay consistent, but I'm like, you have left that character that you were playing so far behind. Just drop it. Just go ahead and get into the video and get into the topic and move on. You know?
yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's.
Ice cream in the winter. Ice cream is good all year. We got 13 inches of snow where I lived last weekend, and still, I'll take a bowl of ice cream or frozen yogurt or gelato or sorbet.
Do you think this is a good
Anyway,
argument for
If your
atheism?
favorite
Ice
argument
cream?
didn't get answered or a response for 16 out of
God.
18 of them in the last video, let me know your favorite argument and if he responds to it, as well as what you think of his response.
Okay.
Ice cream yummy equals God. I've really heard that on YouTube though. Like,
Okay, so on his last video, did you have a favorite argument of his or a least favorite argument of his from his previous video, from his first one? Responding to Zoom.
no, I think he's pretty well rounded. He's been doing a good job. I didn't watch this one, but I watched the first one, and in pointing out which arguments are in fact arguments against atheism and which are just arguments against anti-Christians.
Well, to me, and I'm not, again, I love Dark, but I don't think that was his best video. He had like 5 or 6 responses that were amazing. But there was a few of them. I only hit 2. I only hit his argument against somehow the anonymousness of the Gospels is a violation of the truth claim. He didn't word it that way, but I was like, that's not correct. That obviously doesn't matter who the authorship is if the statement is true. And
it depends what the claim is, though.
Yeah. Well, again, the Zoomer's answer was so vague that and the question to it was so vague that it didn't go anywhere. And then the other one that I didn't like was his the Bible contradictions being ad hoc answers. And I'm like, you can say they're fallacious, you can say they're wrong, but they're not ad hoc. It's not like you're coming to it after the fact and trying to reinterpret. You're showing the explanation of why it is written in this way, what the indications are of when it's being metaphorical, of when it's being literal, how they're doing it. And these are explanations on how to understand these things. So you can say that those explanations are wrong, but they're not ad hoc. They're not post rationalizations. These are supposedly, and again, you have to buy into it to get here, but they're supposedly the explanations the apostles gave for why they wrote it this way. So if you're going to buy into the system, you're going to have to buy into and I'm not saying that Dark does, but I'm talking about the religious people.
Yeah.
That if you're going to buy into that the apostles told the disciples and the disciples told their students what was written and explained it, then you have to buy into it, all the way, that this is really their explanation of why they wrote it that way.
And I think if that's the argument, you don't need any arguments. If your argument is, I believe it because I read it in the Bible, then there's no need for any of the philosophical arguments or historical arguments or whatever. It's just because I believe what the Bible says, period.
Well, the argument, though, is not that we believe what the Bible says because the Bible says it. The church fathers, even as late as Christensen, which he wrote after this period, but somehow he affects the interpretation of the period. But you have Origen, you have Jerome, you have all these people who are writing and saying that the way that the apostles chose these verses from the Old Testament was to highlight the actions that happen on Jesus. So Jesus, let's just take the water into wine thing, or the healing of a blind person. Well, that has to be contextualized, because what is it being said here? Why is he going to a Gentile woman and not to a Jewish woman? Why is he going to a Samaritan? What is the reason for the walking on water? What is that teaching? So you have these pullbacks, these throwbacks to Old Testament verses, and it's almost like what the writer. I'm not talking about Mark, Luke, and John. That's not what I mean. I mean like the actual person who was speaking the story. What he did or she did, is that they took the actual facts of Jesus' life, the bare bones. They took the sayings of Jesus, which is a lost book now, that would have been the actual sayings. It's like what we know Jesus actually said, which is like the red letters. And then they then went back into the narrative, into the Jewish narrative, and they were drawing or pulling from the Old Testament literarily themes that they could then highlight. So that's why the Jewish interpretation and the Christian interpretation is different, because the Jewish interpretation is taking a different perspective on these stories. Well, the Christians are taking it and they're reinterpreting the Jewish conclusion to now match Jesus, and they're doing this really cool deep dive into Judaism to show how Jesus fulfills and completes these prophecies, some of which were not prophecies in Judaism, but are now prophecies
in Christianity.
Yeah.
And that seems fake as hell to the non-believer, because the one that comes to mind is "Out of Egypt I call my son" from Hosea. Matthew makes. That's not a prophecy. Just like you said, like it's actually in the story of Hosea, he's just hearkening back to the Exodus, and then Matthew reinterprets it in a forward-thinking manner, when it's the grammar, the context, everything points to a backwards-looking manner.
So the Christians, which again, they're not Christians at this time, they're Jews. These Jewish, I don't even want to call them mystics. This subsect, not sect, but sect of Jews are taking what are questions for mystical Judaism, and this comes out in Kabbalahism. This comes out in Talmudic interpretations, where things that, as a reader, an outside reader from Judaism, like modern Christians or atheists, we don't think those are questions. We don't think they're lingering questions, but in the Jewish communities of that time period, they're lingering questions. They're like, well, what was he talking about? Well, he said us. Is that two gods? Is that three gods? What's that about? What's the us? It said that it was going to be fulfilled, but we're still in slavery. We're still in slavery to Rome. How was that fulfilled in the Old Testament if we're currently in this situation now? And that's where the Christians are these early Christian writers in these schools. So if you're in the Johannian school or you're in the Marcion school, you're taking this tradition that was taught to you by supposedly the Apostle Peter and then his students and his church that he established. And you're taking that tradition and you're saying, okay, well, this is fulfilled here in this incident here. So that's the question they're answering. They're not answering, what did the Jewish people of whenever the Babylon Exodus happened and they wrote this for the first time, what were they thinking when they wrote this about their past? They're looking forward and saying, how is this answered today by what happened to Jesus just, a few years ago? Like what's going on here?
And I get that from like a metaphorical, mystical sense, but I don't get it from an actual historical, literally this is a thing that's supposed to happen sense. And this came up in my debate because I got loaded down with the notes. And I'll tell you that First Hebrew 5 or 1:5, or not First Hebrew chapter 1 verse 5, it says, "I will be a father to him and he shall be a son to me." The author of Hebrews is pulling a proof text from 2 Samuel chapter 7 verse 14 to reinforce the point that Jesus is the Son of God, essentially. Right. But that author of Hebrews cut that verse in half.
Mhm.
The end of the verse, it says, well, he'll be a father and he will be my son. And then he says, when he does wrong, I will punish him with a rod wielded by men and floggings inflicted by human hands.
Mhm.
And that's fine. That would back up your crucifixion narrative, except for the point when he says, when
Jesus
he
is
does
sinless.
wrong.
Right.
Yes. Or in other translations, it says,
Well,
for his wickedness.
Jewish B.S. Lewis, Tovia Singer would be very proud of you.
That's how I did all my research. That's Tovia Singer, Jews for Judaism, and Michael Skoback. That's where I was hitting it.
Okay, well, there you go. But the problem with that is that if you go into the Talmudic sources and you go into the Rambam, which I learned only recently that I'm an asshole, that the Rambam, the Rashish, and another one, they're I think it's Maimonides, they're all the same guy. So I thought I was reading 3 different sources and it's all the same guy. But anyway, not the point. So you go into these different sources or these different materials, and they will get into these mystical questions that arise in later rabbinical Judaism. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that, oh, these were questions during the priesthood period of Judaism. The problem is that if you take the skeptical viewpoint that says that these weren't questions at that time period, you also have to take the skeptical standpoint that First Temple Judaism might not have even existed. So if there weren't any priests to ask these questions, what are we debating? We're debating that a non-question was asked by a group of non-existent people. Like I don't even understand what the atheistic objection would be there, because you're talking about people that didn't exist asking a question that wasn't asked. Like I don't get that objection.
Well, this wouldn't be my objection in the first place, because it's not the Jews that I'm having a problem with in this scenario. It's the Christians, the original Christians, the author of Hebrews, who is pulling this as a proof text to verify Jesus, but also the modern Christian who thinks of Jesus as the spotless, sinless Lamb of God who died as a sacrifice for your sins.
Well, I think
my objection would be that I don't think that the Christology that's going on in all the books is univocal. I don't think Paul's Christology is the same as John, same as Matthew, same as different people. I think these guys all had different ideas. The fact that the Catholics or the Orthodoxy canonized the Bible and put this mishmash together and said, "You guys have to believe this, or you're heretics and you're going to be in big trouble." That's where the problem arises, and that problem has stayed for thousands of years.
In my video, in my live stream from last night that I did on a different service, that's buried, if you can find it, I actually do talk about this, because in the script that I'm writing for a video that might never come out, because it's too long. Right now, I'm at 12 pages. I need to turn it into a 15-minute freaking video. But when you look at the development of the Bible and how it worked, when we're talking about, and again, it goes back to Dart's previous video and Zoomer's previous video. We might have a celebrity in our chat. Let me see if he wants to come in.
D-Man or what?
Yeah.
D-Man. Oy vey, D-Man, come on in. Shalom.
But when you look at what we're calling authorialship and what we're calling that tradition, it's that the church that holds that tradition, that holds that oral tradition, and holds that copy of that manuscript of that epistle that complements it, that school ends up being the one that's deciding that that's authentic, and then they are deciding what other traditions are authentic. And that happens with the Marcion, with the Lucian, with the Johannian, and with the, what's the fourth gospel? Matthean, with the Matthean schools. So each one of these churches that become the dominant traditions, the dominant churches, are deciding which, since they're saying, okay, this epistle and this gospel is true, here are the other ones that we are okay with. And this is before the Arian gospels. This is before the Gnostic gospels even come into existence.
Again, but I think you're missing my prayer point. Let's fast forward till the canonization, or not the canonization, but well, yeah, the canonization until they put all these views together, because the Orthodoxy had to decide we're going to go with these 4 different views. They're going to ignore Marcionite views, Gnostic views, whatever different views, but they decide these 4. And that is the problem I'm translating. Well, mainly the problem was that the proof text doesn't match the real text. And if you watch like Matt Powell or any of these other guys, they love to quote mine. They'll quote mine Richard Dawkins. They'll quote mine, what's the guy with evolution? Darwin. And they'll just take little pieces and be like, aha, see?
Hold
Even
on.
Darwin
Wait.
says.
Whole world, I want you to note, all 5 viewers, B.S. Lewis just confirmed Darwinism is bullshit. We have a winner. It's over. It's done. Atheism just died.
B.S. Powell, you can call me now. So thanks for quote mining me on that.
You're welcome.
You are very in the spirit of the conversation. Deconverted man.
No.
I'm not playing.
All right, I'm going to jump out for a second. I'm going to let you guys talk amongst yourselves.
All right.
All right, let's tell
Hey,
everybody
remember
how
when
atheism.
Alpha said that he owed me $1 million?
Yeah, and that he told us behind backstage
like,
that Christianity's
He
false.
was like, Christianity, that's all bullshit. I know it.
He said, "I'm
And
just a
deconverted
closet
him.
atheist."
He said both. He said, man. He said, after I watched you guys have gay sex, I wasn't the same after that. And then I owed deconverted man $1 million. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know about that gay sex part. I don't remember that. He said, you were really drunk. I'm like, I don't remember getting drunk. He's like, yeah, exactly. Oh,
This is all deconverted, man. This isn't my shtick.
There's nothing wrong with being gay. It's fine. You're not look, just because you had gay sex, that doesn't make you gay. Not that there's anything wrong with being gay or having gay sex. But I'm just saying, like, if you do it once, it's like, like when you were a kid, right? Your mom would be like, hey, try it. You don't know if you don't like it until you try it, right?
That's true.
That was what your mom or dad, whoever said. Somebody said that at some point, probably.
No, my mom said, if you touch wieners with another guy, you're going to hell. That's what my mom said.
You don't know. Like, I don't like peas. Like, try it. You don't know. Give peas a chance. And I'm like, oh, yeah? Well, why don't you tell the president that we're at war? And then, like, they're like, fine, I will. And they wrote the president. And they're like, give peas a chance. And they sent peas to the president. And then they got arrested. And it was all Alpha's fault.
And then we had world peace.
Oh, he's back. Quiet. None of this happened.
Shh, stop talking about it.
So that explains the universe. So, yeah, thank you. We can't, unfortunately, we cannot explain the universe twice. It's a one-time deal, so he missed it. And yeah, if anyone asks, that's what we were talking about. Well, he was gone.
All I want the audience to know is that this is a conversion channel. So just by coming in, I have done soul winning, and I have converted 2 atheists right in front of you.
That's right. Spread the good news.
I just finished complaining about a video, so okay, sure, whatever. This redeemed Zoomer. Well, not to get into like what people are thinking or motivations or whatever, but it seems to me that the guy that did the initial video, he got what he wanted. He got attention. He certainly made the rounds. I mean, everybody for whatever reason noticed that video. So, he succeeded in that, if nothing else. And I guess that probably got him some subs and whatever. But it's like these aren't really even like you can't do even one argument in 10 minutes, let alone all. You can't do all anyways. You can't do all anything. I mean, it's too many.
Well, to be fair, I think there's only one argument for atheism anyway. Like, there's not enough evidence. That's the only argument.
Well, yeah. Well, in that sense, yeah. I mean that is, there's arguments against other arguments or whatever, and yeah, I mean that's been kind of the problem is that the person with the proposition says, "Here's this idea I have," and someone crosses their arms and says, And we've been at that since then. We've been at it, and we've been going like, no, yeah, we've been doing that back and forth. That's why I kind of get poetic, and I like Berman's song from the perspective of God, where he's like, maybe God doesn't believe in us. Or I was like, yeah, that's an interesting idea, isn't it? And what if God doesn't believe in humans? Like, what if we're made up? Like, what if God
No,
has
I'm
to believe in
real.
us?
I'm a real
Yeah,
boy.
like, what if God has to believe in us, or when it dies, it doesn't go to heaven? Like,
That would be a paradox, right? That'd be crazy.
All right,
well, I don't know. Why
Okay,
not?
are we ready? Are we ready to listen to the first of I forget where I'm at.
What are we
Dark
doing
of
here?
all trades. We are commenting on Dark of all trades. I'm
Oh.
taking the Christian's perspective.
Oh,
You're
okay. You're wrong. Got it.
deconverted. You're taking the atheist perspective.
No, I'm taking the
Uh,
skeptical perspective. I'm not taking. I'm
yes.
taking the lobsterous perspective.
I'm taking
That's
the
what I'm-
Jewish
You're
perspective.
taking the Jewish perspective. So yes, we're all in. We're all in on
All
this.
right, here we
Let's go.
go. All right, sure, why
Okay.
not? I don't know what we're doing, but okay,
One
let's
frame
do
every
it.
minute. Here we go.
But before I get distracted even more, here is part 2 of grading our Zoomers' answers.
God is just used to fill in the gaps of things that science can't explain yet. Well, actually,
Okay, atheist, gather together, form Voltron. Okay.
Sure.
What is this question? What is this question asking to the uninformed Christian who's going to jump onto the stream, 10 years from now and see this fucking video and wonder what the fuck was this?
Well,
What's this question asking?
it was kind of misrepresenting, but the original intent would be to comment on the God of the Gaps fallacy, which is not an argument against God per se. It is an observation that sometimes people will employ this logical fallacy where it is a form of an appeal to ignorance, which is a fallacy where you say, I don't know X, therefore Z is true. So I don't know how this happened or why this happened, therefore I'm going to offer an explanation to that satisfies myself, if no one else, at any rate. So the door to my room opens and I don't know why, so I say a ghost did it.
But here's the problem: is that most Christians and remember, you're on a Christian channel technically, our believers channel
in quotes,
and we're going to argue that we're not looking at the God of the Gaps. We're looking at the answers and saying, oh, okay, this is so amazing. This is what God has given us. So we're not looking at those of us who believe in genetics and evolution and those who just believe in beauty in general. We're not looking at nature and saying like, oh, we can't explain it, therefore God did it. We're saying, oh, it's so amazing. Of course, this is what God would do. He would create, bacteria and viruses.
Well,
and
can I ask you a
so,
serious question? Serious question, Alpha. Why is
my nose itching?
What would you consider to not be evidence for God?
What would not be evidence for God? Nothingness, voidness.
So nothing is not evidence for God. So
well,
everything
nothing would be evidence for God. So the nothing, like not nothing as in
like never-ending story.
Like never no, but like the nothing that is philosophically nothing. So not the nothing of Dawkins, not the waves of gravity that existed before there was, or the waves of chemicals that existed before there was chemicals. Not that, but actual nothing, actual voidness, the lack of anything, of any science, any rules, any creation, and the perpetuation of that nothingness would be evidence of a lack of a creator.
Does nothing exist?
As far as we can tell, if nothing ever did exist, that moment of creation eradicated nothing. And it's the expansion and contraction of the universe with those radio waves, with those gravitational waves, the rules of physics, all that existence is the background to creation. So you have God, whether you want to call it the Big Bang, or whether you want to go 5 minutes before, or 10 minutes before, or 3 seconds before, when the rules of the universe were created, that's a something.
So hypothetically,
well, all right.
go ahead, Demon. You go ahead.
Yeah, I love the question. It's its own It deserves its own video, really. I mean, you know.
We're not doing very clear
Someone
for
should
anyone who's
do
watching. We're not doing that here.
Yeah, we're
We're
not doing that.
powering
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
through.
Yeah,
we're
it's a
powering
different
through.
it's a different discussion. It is a great question that he's come up with, and I'd love to explore it more. But it's unfair if we do that. I feel. Although I'd love to join in BS.
Moving on.
You know,
Yes.
but yeah, it's like, oh yeah. So I was gonna say that the way that you formulate the statement either produces the fallacy or it doesn't. So if you say, I don't understand this thing, therefore God, then that's the God of the gaps. But if you say, well, I do, this is beautiful, I do understand it, also therefore God, then that's fine. You know, so it's just about how you say this, that whether you're performing the fallacy or not. And so when and if somebody does a fallacy, whether it's God of the gaps or just appeal to, which is just a form of appeal to ignorance. It's just
Well,
a particular
I don't know.
form of
I don't know if you were watching earlier, but that's what me and BS were actually talking about. Is that the wording? So, in my opinion, Dark drops the ball in at least 5 of the 40 questions. He just drops the ball. But I don't think, and BS agreed with me, I don't think it's BS simply dropping the ball. I think Zoomer is wording the question so ambiguously or responding to a so ambiguous question that there's no great answer that Dark could give. So, yeah,
right. No, yeah.
Yeah.
The questions are malformatted because it's construct straw man in
Right.
the first place. And he responds to the construct straw man without using any coherence or logic, so he can't even negate his own straw man. It's quite amusing. But yeah, it's worded in such a sloppy way, you have to fix it. But we're kind of doing that here and saying, okay, what is this really actually trying to discuss? Let's have a meaningful actual conversation about this. And it is a fact, and I think you would agree, Alpha, and let me know if you don't, that some people occasionally will do a God of the gaps, and we don't know how lightning worked. Well, that was God, and we didn't know about
Answered
St.
prayer.
Elmo's fire. Well, you could, and so it does happen. Okay.
So
Sure.
one of the things that would happen at a previous place of employment, the person was a born again Christian, and he believed in the literalness of the Bible. And so when I would bring up things like evolution or science or physics into the argument, he would call me stupid and crazy. Like I was the dumb one for believing science was real or believing, whatever was real. And I would even be called a liar just for bringing up evolution and stuff like that into the argument of how these things work, but how it's not about God of the gaps. So I like to think of certain sects of Protestantism, and maybe they're not even Protestant anymore. This like a 2 steps out evangelical nothingness that's barely Christian, whatever. But they, Jesus not religion types. They come in and they have these statements that are themselves ignorant. So it's not appeal to ignorance, it's an appeal to be ignorant. That's how I view it. So it's like, oh, medication can't be the answer, so therefore medication is wrong. Oh, evolution can't be the answer, so therefore evolution is wrong. Not evolution is wrong because some specific theory that I'm going to find, not some argument that we're going to have about a biogenesis.
Well,
I
the
mean,
theory, the theory is Genesis 1 is literal. That's the theory.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on who you're talking to and what the phrasing is. But you would, again, you would agree, right? Or let me know, do you disagree that the fallacy occurs, right? We have
I think the fallacy I think the God of the gaps fallacy occurs in people who are stuck in denialism, but that doesn't mean that they didn't use some reason to get, because they before they believed,
they might not know about the fallacy. Let's
right,
or they might be unaware that they're doing it, but nonetheless they've done it.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stop us here because we are 1 minute into the video and we're
All
an
right,
hour
yeah.
into
Oh
the
yeah,
thing.
no,
So
this is gonna
let's
take us
just, like,
5 days.
Yeah,
Come on.
let's keep going.
God is the reason for everything, even things that science can explain. It's not one or the other. It's not
Can
like
I make
everything's
one remark?
explained by
One
either
remark before
science
moving
or
on.
Dog
God.
it, BS.
And the more
Okay, hold on,
science
wait,
can
wait.
explain, the less
Where's the
God can
pause button?
explain.
You got 30.
Ah, shit.
Actually, God is
Okay.
Just the reason I brought up that question I brought up earlier is his answer in the bubble is God is the reason for everything in caps.
Mhm.
And my point would be to say that it's the presuppositional apologetics creeping in. That's it. We can move on.
Okay, I have a response to that, but I don't want to be stuck here. So let's just move forward. Just go. Power on.
the reason for everything, even things that science can explain. It's not one or the other. It's not like everything's explained by either science or God, and the more science can explain, the less God can explain. Really, science can explain almost everything, but God is still behind it all because science explains the how and God explains the why.
Oh, wow, no. This is an
Wait.
Yeah.
I've used this answer in Gar streams and in other people's channels, in even on D-Man's channel. What do you think of this answer? The God.
I want the Jewish explanation.
Oy vey, that's correct. Now the atheist explanation is the precepts. Like if I precept that God doesn't exist, then there's nothing you can show me that God doesn't exist. If I precept God
Can you
does
go back
exist,
to the frame there? Because I need the picture on screen because my brain goes blank otherwise.
Me?
Yeah, go back a bit there.
There we go.
but that was
Okay,
it. It was
thank you,
just
thank you.
if I presuppose God, then God is the thing for everything else.
No,
because
it's
not.
that no. Well, it's not. So the thing is, I'm saying, hey, Alpha, this fallacy exists, and rather than agreeing with me, even though you kind of, you kind of are like, yeah, I agree, but I don't want to really agree that the fallacy is, the fallacy is there. We have to agree that. It's like maybe you don't want to agree that people do it or whatever. I don't know. But regardless, we're not addressing that. We're not addressing that problem at all. We're just saying, yeah, so what? But God explains everything. It's like, yeah, that could be the case, but if you commit the fallacy, it's still worth noting and it's still worth correcting because you're not using good reasoning to get to your God. So
But actually, on exactly that note, this video, not this video, sorry, the previous video, when I watched it, inspired me to do a video that I haven't done yet because it would take a little bit of work. But I would like to do a 2-part video of just fallacies. So the first video is only fallacious arguments for Christianity, but argue them as if like I'm arguing them. And then in the next video, only do fallacious arguments either for atheism or from an atheist perspective toward Christianity, but only again the fallacious arguments. So I think that would be really interesting. And I think BS actually got a taste of that in his debate earlier when he was arguing a point that he doesn't believe in, but he had to argue it believably. I think that's a good, healthy exercise to actually
steel manning your opponent's position is good to do because
I think we should also do the fallacious arguments. We should put them out there so people can recognize when they're using that word track.
Oh, you mean like analyze them
yeah.
for logical fallacy? Yeah, what crazy, insane person would ever do that?
Yeah, I don't know anybody who has a channel dedicated to that.
Only a madman would try to do something like that.
I agree. I agree. That's a bad idea. That channel probably wouldn't be doing very well. And
no, it wasn't.
Oh, and that was a good burn too.
And he wouldn't produce 2 books. You suck. Everyone's
all right, let's keep going.
Everything, but God is still behind it all because science explains the how and God explains the why.
Oh, wow, no. This is an unfounded and unknowable assertion at best. As I stated earlier, before you can attribute a cause to explain anything, how or why, you need to show that it actually exists. Since you've already conceded that God does not exist in the physical world, it has no impact on the physical world, therefore cannot be the why for anything in the physical world either. What is happening here is that Zoomer is trying to explain a reason for something happening rather than accepting that we understand how things work. Why does there need to be a why when we have a perfectly good explanation otherwise? This is basically attempting to question the fundamental forces. They are fundamental. I know some people don't like brute facts. But even if we pretend that there is a why behind what would be considered a brute fact, the cause needs to be shown and justified, not just asserted. Again, you can't just define a god into existence. 2 for 19.
Pre-sub.
If God
Wait,
is good, why
Alpha,
can't he
hold on,
destroy all
pause.
evil? Well, he eventually will.
So
Wake
God will
up.
take.
Oh, yo, it was a fast one. Here, how about we to get through these quicker? How about this game? Let
I'm
the
not.
Zoomer.
I'm not taking off my clothes. I'm sorry.
Oh, damn it! Well, then everybody would run away, and then there'd be like 0 people watching. No, for me and D-Man, let the Zoomer play, and then me and D-Man can guess what Dark will answer.
So
I don't know this guy though.
He's heavy into philosophy, but he's pretty sure. He he gave the precept argument. That's what I said was the thing, and he said precept
yeah.
was the reason thing.
So you
whatever.
and D-Man do the response to the bad presuppositionalism, and then I do the response to Dark's semi-poor performed atheism.
Well, I
That's
mean,
fair.
he's approaching it differently, than I do, or somebody else.
It's a
might
game.
do.
It's
Yeah,
a
that's
game.
fine. I
Play
don't.
along.
I
Yeah.
just want to be very clear that, I mean, not that like he's going to watch,
I
but
don't spot any
it's only
fallacies.
it's
though.
only the first 4 answers really that he kind of sucks at, and then after that he just all of them are great after
Yeah,
that.
well,
again.
if I notice a fallacy, I'll point it out, no matter who makes it. So
Well, I was just sending out the link to get some more people in here, so I'm going to
Oh,
send out another link, and let's just keep going.
You can pin it, and you don't have to keep popping it up. Pin it in.
Oh no,
YouTube.
I'm putting it
Pop
on Twitter.
pop it in, man.
I'm putting
Like
it on
we did
Facebook.
earlier when he left. Remember BS Lowe's?
Yeah, that was good times.
Now,
yeah.
here's the only other thing is that next time around, I would kind of like to try this out on Twitch, but I don't know if that'd be a good idea. I don't think that there's a religious aspect on Twitch at all.
I don't know. I've wondered about that. I thought about that. Anyways. Keep
Okay. Completely different thing. Completely different thing. On Twitch, I do have a Twitch channel that I've been doing both Cyberpunk 2077 and Hogwarts. I would like to do some tabletop gaming, so if anyone watching this wants to do some tabletop with me, I'd be down for some Vampire the Masquerade, either the 5th edition or the 20th anniversary edition. Little plug, moving on.
We free will? Isn't evil tied to man's free will? Or is it that we will no longer need to have growth in character formation, redemption, and reconciliation? There are a lot of problems to this response, but basically we will no longer be human in every outcome. This is nothing but a wait and see. But of course, how many people have done that only to die before all evil is destroyed? It isn't an answer. 2 for 20. Halfway done?
Why can't he do it now? Because he'd have to destroy you.
Why? Are you judging me as evil?
Okay, so atheists in the room. What do you think?
It's a good objection. I would say he doesn't have to destroy you now, but it goes to the point why he couldn't make heaven in the first place, why he put the tree in the garden, and how you can guarantee that there won't be another trap in the next afterlife.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, can you go back again to the Zoomer part, because the bubbles, so I can. Yeah, I know. I'm pressing my back button, but it does nothing. My arrow keys do nothing. How versus why? Okay. So in order to destroy evil, he has to destroy you. Okay. Then do it. All right, go ahead.
You a big man calling God's bluff, deconverted man.
Yeah.
Do it, God, do it. I dare you.
I mean, no, push the button. Okay, then destroy. If we're so evil, if all of reality is so darn evil, then start again. Try it again. Because why didn't you make it not evil in the first place? Then make it the way you want it to be made. Don't make it with a flaw or with a possibility of flaws. And if you can't help but make it that way, then don't make it at all. Just do it in a way that works. Sticking with the Christian narrative. Okay, Adam and Eve, blah blah blah. All right, send Jesus immediately. Hey guys, here I am. Yeah, one of you has to kill me, but then I die for your sins. You accept that, and you're all scot-free, and you can go right back in the garden.
So as the the theist, deist, Catholic, Christian, religious person. I'm running out of terminologies for this. As the person who believes things in the room, I'm so falling over. My problem with your response, and it's the exact same problem with Dark's response, is that that's not actually the question here, because I think we as people confuse suffering with evil. So you got to, first off, suffering can't be considered evil. Then you have to ask about the fact of um bacteria. What's good for bacteria? What's good for viruses, if viruses are alive? What's good for mackerels? What's good for humans? What's good for, the universe? Like, all this stuff is life. So all these things matter, and they don't have a higher or lower importance. I know that in Genesis, we're going to say, well, humans are going to be slightly more important than the rest, but we're still in charge of caring for these things, these creations of God. So I would say, my personal opinion is, I would say that it's not going to be, why doesn't God just destroy evil? Because he wouldn't just be destroying evil, he'd be destroying good. Eventually, life will, because of the empathy of the universe, things will cease to exist. And I don't think there is free will in heaven. I don't think by the time you reach that state when you're no longer in a mortal coil, to have the illusion of virtual free will. Once you no longer have that possibility of free will, I don't think that then evil can't exist, because you don't have the ability to choose to do evil.
So, but
Everything you say, I want to fight you on, but we're on a
it's like
time schedule.
I disagree that you can't. I do classify harm as evil. And there's that thing whose name I can't hope to pronounce in a million years. Let me try anyway. Acanthapio. Okay, acant amoeba. Acanthamoeba. There we go.
I can't say amoeba.
Yeah, I can't say amoeba. It eats through kids' eyes. It eats through eyeballs. That's like its thing. It does. So it appears, it comes in water, and like kids will drink the water, and then it will burrow its way through their eyeball, because that's what it do. And it's like, well, why make that? Like,
It was Adam's job to take care of that thing.
yeah, like just don't have that. Fine. The volcano, okay, I see that. But why this thing? Come on. And it's like, well, because I like that thing too. I like that evil thing. I like that it has its own thing, it does something in heaven too, or whatever.
The answer is sin. Sin. That's the answer.
Well, so again, for a long time, and I do believe in free will, and I do believe that free will is the answer to this question, but I don't, as someone who has read outside text, not just Buddhist texts and stuff like that, but the texts that argue about the problem of evil. When you get to stuff like life is suffering, well, suffering then becomes a good. So that just throws all that out for the Eastern ideas. But when it comes to the Christian, whether it's Orthodox or Jewish, any kind of Abrahamic answer, what you actually have is the divine plan. And in some versions of the divine plan, in some interpretations, you don't have original sin. That's actually a Catholic Christian idea. So if you separate out original sin, which I know a lot of Protestants think that that's their idea, but no, that's a Catholic idea. The Catholics came up with this idea of original sin. If you go to other denominations and other Christianities that don't have original sin, you still get the same formalization of salvation. So salvation isn't there merely to undo original sin, because you can still have the formulation of salvation. And I said this in a video a long time ago that nobody watched, but the hell is not the punishment. Hell is the default. Everyone's
User, it didn't happen.
But I would say you're still not answering. It is not a question I don't think you could answer, because it would be to know the mind of your God, of why. Well, why did God not do it X way? You don't know. I don't know. Nobody would know that, unless but can we postulate an answer? And it doesn't seem, you said, heaven, you don't have free will. It's like, okay, well then make us in heaven in the first place, and then we don't have this suffering.
Because
Why not do that,
the state of being in heaven is not the state of life now. It's a different state of being.
Right.
It's not that mortal life is not important. If it wasn't important, Jesus wouldn't come here and die, for instance. If it's not important, Moses, God wouldn't step in to help out Moses,
So
Noah.
then there's a purpose for the suffering.
I don't think that. Well, again,
there's a purpose for the evil.
In the Catholic understanding that has original sin, yes. But in the other interpretations, like the Jewish interpretations and the Orthodox interpretations that don't have original sin, no. This is why I leaned very heavily into Orthodoxy. The only reason, and me and B.S. talked about this earlier today, the only reason I'm a Catholic is because of the Pope. If there wasn't a Pope, I would have been Orthodox or Jewish.
Would a fair response to this question, if it was asked, would be, I don't know? I mean, because you can't. I think that if somebody asks, like, I don't know the Bible.
An Orthodox Catholic would argue it's a mystery upon mystery. That's the Orthodox answer.
Yeah.
But if you ask a Jewish rabbi, you do get answers to this. You do get theologies on suffering. They're very neat. They're very neat. They're very bleak. They're very dark. But suffering becomes this almost necessity of life. It becomes almost Buddhistic in its understanding of what suffering does for you. Again, I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not going to try to pretend I know Buddhist scripture. I read it once. I read the Buddhist stuff once in college. I don't have a good grasp of it, but that is where it goes.
Yeah.
Can I bring up something? Can you let it play till the answer comes up on the screen?
Yeah. Let's do this. I'm gonna cut back just a little bit.
We're never big.
Just play it for 2 seconds. Play for 5 seconds.
I'm gonna purposely let it run for 1 whole minute without us talking. Okay, wherever we get to, that's where we get.
Can't he destroy all evil? Well, he eventually will.
Stop.
So God will take away free
will. Damn it. Anyway, whenever problem of evil questions come up to the Christians, generally the theists who believe in an all-good, all-powerful God, there is always an attempt to shift from could to would, couldn't to wouldn't, can to won't, or can to will, or can't to won't. A shift between the possibility to the will. And this is exactly the same tactic that this guy's pulling to answer this question. The question is about the possibility or impossibility. And then he shifts it to the will. Like, he could do it, but he won't because,
Well, let me say this, and maybe this is going to sound a bit dramatic, but I'm not trying to be. So you take something like my life. My mother and my sister died by the time I was 6. I went through about 100 funerals by the time I was 15. When I was in college and I had a good career, a good academic career going, I had a stomach cancer scare. It ended up being just H. pylori, but I was bleeding for months out of my stomach. And I lost my job. I lost my career. I threw away my entire life savings. I then get my life back together. And I then, through a bad relationship and through some bad choices, end up living back at home. I become diabetic. I lose my ability to walk. I then lose everything, have to rebuild everything again. And then I get a career. And then my career means that I can go live with my wife in China and I can have a great life there. And then my dad gets Alzheimer's. And then I'm stuck here in a life that I was already moving on from. And eventually that leads to the point where my wife is now in China, where I have an opportunity to be a professor and teach something that I love, philosophy, history, and art. I have an opportunity to have my life, and I have to put that on hold to take care of my father while he's degrading. And this is a man who I did not have a great relationship with. He was an artist. He's a musician who's in the Hall of Fame for the type of music that he does. We had a great life, but he was a musician first and a drunk second and a father third. and he was more of a friend and a brother than he was a dad. That's my life, and I believe in God. Now, that's me dealing with suffering. And I know the difference between suffering and evil. Evil has an intent. People have done evil things to me, from calling me the F word, from attacking my friends who are black or gay or transgendered, and me defending them and me paying consequences for that, or people purposely doing horrible things. That's evil. Evil has an intent. That's not suffering. The diabetes was suffering. My mother dying was suffering, but that was not an evil act. And I think that distinction, when it's lost, hurts not just the Christian argument, but it hurts the argument for humanity. So if you're going to be a humanist, you have to understand that distinction, because otherwise you are blaming humanity for problems that are not caused by human beings.
Well, suffering or evil or whatever you want to label it, or you might want to mix the labels because we use language in different ways. It's no way to pin down the dang words. Regardless, I think it's saying why not get rid of all that and fair enough. The one answer is there's no way to answer that question. Another is to say, well, there's some purpose or reason for it that we don't know about, or there's some justification thereof.
But what about my
all,
answer that there's a distinction and that there's a difference between?
Yeah, there's a distinction between suffering and evil, but I consider suffering to be a needless thing. It's not a necessary thing that has to be. And so if it's needless, then I consider that to be an evil of sorts. It could have, if there is a thing that made everything in this way, then it could have made it that there was no components that would incur that sort of suffering, that alcohol didn't make people drunk and disorderly, that people don't die, that people don't get sick in the first place, get rid of all that, so these events that caused you woe wouldn't have, didn't have to be there. Well, there's certain ones that might have existed because of society, but perhaps there would be some system in place that would negate that, or mitigate it, or change it so that those things, and you're talking about a totally different reality than what we have. We're pretending, a paradise, and that's it's a boring
I appreciate what you're saying, but we're really. I'm gonna go for it. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Anyways,
Isn't evil tied to man's free will, or is it that we will no longer need to have growth in character formation, redemption, and reconciliation? There are a lot of problems to this response, but basically we will no longer be human in every outcome. This is nothing but a wait and see. But of course, how many people have done that only to die before all evil is destroyed? It isn't an answer. 2 for 20. Halfway done?
Why can't he do it now? Because he'd have to destroy you.
Why are you?
I'm gonna let Dark answer, and then I want you guys to give me an opinion of his answer. Okay.
You judging me as evil? How do you know I'm evil unless you're presuming to know the mind of God? Isn't everything part of God's plan anyway? I'm just a cog in the machine, and I am ready to be destroyed by your God to allow others to no longer have to suffer the immense pain they deal with every day. But that won't happen. As we've already established, your God is outside the material world, so your God can't destroy me.
Okay, so I want you guys to talk about that. So I myself have used the argument that God is outside of time and outside of reality. He does now, in my theology, in Christology, he does interact. But Dark is saying, well, no, he doesn't interact. What is your opinion on that? On the theistic viewpoint that God does interact, and Dark's claim that Christians are saying that God doesn't interact. Who's right? Who's wrong here?
To classify God as a being outside of space and time is to classify God as a being that doesn't exist.
How do you figure? Because things exist that are outside space and time. I mean, literally, we can send a...
Name one thing outside of space and time that exists. Besides God. Huh?
Sorry. I went with a joke. I said Doctor Who.
Oh. Well, yeah, I think God's a work of fiction too, but I'm talking seriously though. Like,
Well,
for something not to take up any space or any time, that would be a thing that doesn't exist.
so I, as far as I know, some forms of physics and some parts of chaos theory exist outside of time and out of space. And I know that when we disconnect time and spatial existence, like when we send a clock or a watch into space, and we have a synced one down here, and we break that sound barrier, or I'm going to call it time barrier, even though that's not really what it is, but it sounds more cool. When we break that time barrier and then we come back, they're no longer synced up. I think that is a point where we've separated time out. Now, true. Okay, so one's back, one's forward. We haven't learned how to cross that bridge yet, and crossing that bridge might be impossible. But relativity is going to give us a way to separate those two things out. In my opinion, I'm not a scientist,
Yeah,
but
this would all be science fiction. But even if we're talking at the very, very, very beginning of the Big Bang, where all matter and energy was condensed into a singularity ball,
we
that
have
thing,
up to
that singularity ball would still technically take up space and time, even if it's
mathematically.
not space and time that we know.
Mathematically, we have 3 seconds before the Big Bang. Well, what's 3 seconds before time exists? That has to be outside time and existence. Again, from my point of view and my understanding, I'm not
If
claiming
the
to be
energy
correct.
and matter always existed, then it took up some space.
If the energy and mass and energy, if the energy and rules was created, then at one point it didn't exist. At one point it had to come into existence.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer this. Like this, I'm just going definitionally. If something doesn't take up space and time, it doesn't exist. Like,
yeah, well, what do you think space is referring to would be important to nail down, and what do you think time is referring to? That would be important to nail down. So both are okay. Go ahead.
I would say that anything that's outside of the cosmos or outside of the universe or multiverse, anything that's outside of that reality would be something that's outside of time and space. And if there are greater, and I'm not trying to push it back, like I'm talking about within the square that contains the circle, within this larger square, within this larger box, if there are rules and mechanics out there, those rules and mechanics themselves are outside time and space. And whatever created them, we can call it the first, the primary creator, the prime mover, whatever you want to call it, the nothingness, the void, whatever you want to call it, non-existence. That's a thing, and we're going to return to that non-existence, even if all matter and everything ceases to be, and we say, well, nothing will completely cease. It just has to change,
There's
whatever.
That didn't address what space is. What?
So space is that which contains material existence or created existence.
So you're not referring to the 3-dimensional idea of up, down, left, right as space then?
No.
Okay. And so,
by the way, no one's asked me this before, so thank you for asking that.
And so your concept of space is just space equals
material existence.
Okay. And then, well, what's time? What do you think time is then?
Time would be the linear chronological containment of the constant present.
Okay.
Would you relate that to having to do with motion?
No, I would think motion is a separate entity than time. We're talking about primordial forces, which is something that I used to talk about as abstracts, which me and you, Deconverted Man, had a huge 2-hour argument about, where you don't believe in abstracts, and I'm like, well, I mean, they're there.
They're there. They're just not. They don't exist anywhere except your brain.
Yeah, hallucinations don't exist, is my stance.
But yes, I also posit that
there is a formula chair, and there's a perfect chair out there. I'm sorry, I'm going to go with Plato on this one.
No, Plato's wrong. Aristotle beat beats Plato's ass. But no. Space, I think of the three dimensions, and time is the fourth of and so that's how I conceive of those. So yeah, when you say outside space time, you're saying it no longer has a place or a when. There's no where and no when. That's what that means to me. And so perhaps if the apologists would listen to the complaints of us pesky skeptics, they would hear that particular complaint and then change the wording to be better or something like that, because your conception of space being material or and then time being linear, so outside of the material, okay, that's an interesting concept. I don't know what that would be. Outside of time, non-linear. Okay, that one maybe, but I'm not sure what that is either. But at least those are things that although they're more abstract, they're I can't necessarily object to them other than to ask for further clarification and of course demonstration that those are even things.
You got 10 more seconds.
All right. Lobsters exist.
I don't believe you at all.
All right,
timeless,
good.
spaceless.
Fine.
Not
Yeah,
an
there's-
answer. 2 for 21.
Why does God let any bad things happen? Because we deserve it.
Says who? After all evil is destroyed, will we no longer deserve it? What?
Okay, so
I thought we were
someone's
hearing
telling
his
us-
answer first.
Okay, good point. Good point. Good point. You bastard.
Change from the moment before to the moment after God destroys all evil that changes whether we deserve the bad things or not. This is arguably the worst response to the problem of evil I have ever heard. I tried to keep these answers short because I did a whole video on the problem of evil, so check that out if you want more on it. Though technically an answer, albeit a really bad one with so many holes, but an answer, I'll give them the point for this. 3 out of 22.
Well, animals don't sin, so
Okay. Responses.
Why do we deserve it? Would be my question. Because my ancestor ate a fruit off of a tree. Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think this kind of gets into wokeism in a way, kind of like presuppositional wokeism for pre-modernist, which is your ancestors, partook in slavery.
We have to pay reparations to God. Shit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I was going. Thank you, because I started to lose my train of thought. That's where I was
I
going.
know where
Yes.
you're going. I make
right.
the comparison, and people don't like the comparison usually.
Now,
But-
just to be clear, I'm not a Calvinist. I don't believe that people are naturally wicked. I believe that people are good. Most Catholics believe that people are born good. But original sin is a problem, and the consequences, the temporal consequences of original sin, meaning the temporal consequences of our ancestors' mistakes, compound with time. And the more mistakes we make, the more compounding of those consequences. This is a very temporal, very material problem in the Catholic world. I understand that in other forms of Christianity, it's more metaphysical. I get that.
Here's
But-
a question
Is
though.
the baptism of a baby required for that baby to go to heaven if they die?
In the Catholic Church, yes.
Okay, but I mean, do you think that that's true?
I'm Catholic, so yes.
Okay.
Hold on. Wait.
So-
Wait. Hold on. Wait. This is very important. Deconverted man. I am a Catholic, so yes, I do believe in what the Catholic Church teaches.
Well, I mean, you might not hold certain positions. I don't know.
To be a Catholic, you have to agree with everything, otherwise you're not allowed to be a Catholic.
Well, that's no true Catholic, isn't it? But yeah. So what about people that are unaware of
The
this?
word is submit, not agree. I'm sorry, Trent Horn. Trent Horn, please leave me alone. Trent Horn, please. No. Trent Horn, stop coming after me. I meant to say submit.
What about people that are unaware of the baptism requirement?
Irresistible ignorance. Trent Horn, be happy with me. I said the right answer.
Okay, so I don't know what that means.
Stubs going up.
What does that mean? Are
Irresistible
they screwed or not?
So irresistible ignorance is a Catholic concept that now has spread to other forms of traditional and mainline Christianity. It is still rejected by Calvinists because Calvinists believe in total depravity. But irresistible ignorance is if you live on an island and you've never heard the words of Jesus, and you, to the best of the revelation that you have been granted, revelation here just means you're conscious or what God has showed you through life, through your life lessons, and you follow those rules to the best of your ability. You worship a singular monotheistic deity. You don't know the name, you don't know Jesus, you don't know any of this stuff. You're just doing your thing, following the natural ethics that God has granted you. There is a chance. Now, that's very important that a lot of people who oppose, a lot of religious people who oppose irresistible ignorance, that doctrine, it needs to be very clear. It is a chance. It's not a guarantee. It doesn't mean that if you do all the right things, you go to heaven. It means that God can save whoever he wants. So if you are following your internal tuitions to the best of your ability and you happen to land on all the right answers, God can, or even if you don't, God can forgive and save whoever he wants. So just how Catholics say that just because you believe in God and you go to church, that doesn't mean you're getting into heaven. That's a big difference between Catholics and Protestants. Catholics are like, no, you can do everything right and still go to hell.
So would it be the case upon informing these people that have never heard before about how things should work and do work or whatever, if they reject that, then they definitely are screwed.
So
right?
that's the Calvinistic argument against. That's not the Christian argument against the Catholic doctrine, but that is the Calvinist argument against the Catholic doctrine. They think that means that we're arguing for a world of ignorance, a world of don't tell them anything so they can get to heaven. That's not the case. It's only a chance. So it increases your odds maybe by
right.
one,
That's what I'm
by
saying.
1%.
Is you want the odd. Well, that's still. I mean, why risk it? But it
Because
seems
God
to me
wants you to risk it. You're ordered by God to risk. You're ordered to go out.
Yeah, but I'm not following that. I'm trying to get everybody in. And it seems to me it's safer to have people be ignorant.
You would
I
then
don't
go
care
to
what
hell.
happens to me. I hear what happens to everybody else. Okay, so splashing water, doing the baptism of baby, that saves them. So we can't do that to aborted fetuses, I guess. Or could you do that to
No.
somebody that's aborted?
No.
Or
So if you actually read John Christensen, if you actually read Origen, when they go through this argumentation, because this argumentation has existed from the beginning of the church, it's very clear that, and especially if you read Augustine, because in Augustine, for some reason, Augustine deals with this extensively. Unbaptized babies are going to hell. Period.
So as soon as the baby is born, you should probably just get it baptized like as soon as it comes out, right? Like,
well, you have 3 days, just like you do with circumcision. So 3 days you get circumcised, 3 days.
What do you have 3 days?
That's the tradition of the Jewish tradition. I don't know anything beyond that for that answer, and not for the whole thing, just for that one part.
Right, but I'm saying that for the baby, if they die as soon as you give birth or during birth, and they didn't get baptized, are they going to hell?
They're going to hell.
Okay, so you could baptize them as they're coming out of the canal, right?
The rule is you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to wait 3 days.
But what if they die as they're coming out of the canal?
Too bad, so sad.
Huh. Okay. Well, that seems kind of messed up.
Again, the default is hell. The majority of the world is in hell.
We deserve it.
Wow.
Well, again,
so God is really, truly messed up and beyond evil than I thought. All right. Cool.
No, well, see, you got to understand that you're viewing hell as evil. Again, suffering in the theistic, in the theistic, in the classical theistic definition, suffering is not evil.
No,
evil
well,
is
it
intentional.
is, but it's intentional. They're going to hell.
Maybe we should go to the next question. This is a little.
So, but it seems like we would need to baptize as many babies as possible to ensure.
Deconverted man, I'm gonna agree with B.S. Lewis. We can have a video just on this topic later. Let's move on.
All right.
So why do they suffer? Well, the Bible says all things will be restored. So if God is good, we can assume that they will be compensated.
That doesn't explain why animals suffer. That's just saying that they suffer because they'll get compensated later. How lazy of an answer can you get? If a guy hits you with a baseball bat and then goes to jail and has to pay you a bunch of money, does that explain why he hit you with a baseball bat? No. 3 out of 23.
I realized I was clearing my throat while he was talking. I'm so sorry for everyone who's going to watch this in the future.
It's
Anyway,
fine.
keep going.
My take on this would be that this question flies in the face of the last question. Like, humans deserve all the bad stuff is what his last answer was. And then he asks animals, and it's like he avoids the they deserve it angle and goes to ignoring the question completely and saying that they will be made whole for it, whatever that means in some point in the future.
Yeah, it's whatever makes it. It's whatever justifies the evil, nasty, terrible action that the theist can come up with. You know.
I think the problem of animal suffering is a much bigger problem, at least in the modern world, than the problem of evil or the problem of suffering by itself. The problem. So, if you go back to ancient writing, and not even ancient, you go back to writings about 200, 300 years ago, animal suffering does not matter. There are writings in Kierkegaard where an animal suffering is an example of stupidity. Like, it's like, who cares? But we have, as a society, and I'm included in this, have come to understand that animals do have emotions, do have feelings, do have memories. So I think animal suffering, and especially when you see animals torture other animals, or an animal born to suffer, I think that's a much deeper question. And I think this, I'm before Deconverted Man gets in on this one, I think this also goes into the problem of transgenderism, into the problem of identity. You have men who are clearly very feminine, and you have women who are clearly very masculine, living in a world that doesn't want to accept them before they choose their gender identity. I think that is a state of being of internal suffering that cannot be answered by the free will problem. This is an innate drive that's pulling you towards something. So
would you say the animals deserved it?
Well, no, that's what I'm talking about, is that you have innocent suffering, innocent, non-free will related suffering. So an animal who gets cancer and is starving to death, you can make the argument that because free will compounds, and because every choice multiplies an infinite number of other choices, that you have consequences to actions. So something that happened, in 40,000 BC is affecting something right now. And all these choices have compounded to where, okay, there's starvation in this street because of some evil choice that was made a long time ago about distribution of food. But when you get to an animal, or when you get to someone, to a human's animalistic internal drive, when you get to an animal, you don't have that compounding of free will, even if you want to say it's limited free will. So you want to say that humans suffer under the illusion of virtual free will, and this virtual free will is what classical theism identifies as free will. Well, it's still choice. It's still virtual free will. Animals' free will has long been acknowledged to be less than the humans. So let's say you have virtual free will, and then you have a limited, restricted free will of the animal. So the free will is still there, but now it's even less. And then they're suffering for unintended, not for unintended consequences. So unintended consequences would be, because we moved the river, a fish is drowning. A fish is drowning in air. It can't breathe. It doesn't have water to breathe. Because we moved a forest, now this animal is suffering. Because we're burning a forest for things, now the animals are going to be whatever, put into groups that they wouldn't normally be into. So now the predators are preying on animals they wouldn't normally do. That's unintended consequences. That is still human free will causing problems. When you're talking about an animal born with cancer, or an animal born with pain sensitivity, where it's always in constant pain, those kind of things that are not going to have secondary or third causes like chemicals or mutations, but simply normal adaptation that has gone awry, that that I think is much more interesting of a topic and a
So is
much
the
harder
summary
question to
that
think the answer.
is the summary that God is evil then?
No.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
That's pretty much sounds like
Yeah,
it.
no.
Like,
I think that's the way to solve it. Just say, yeah, God's evil, and all the good is just because you have to have some good to know what evil
yeah,
is.
he made other
Yeah.
sentient feeling
Yeah.
beings that are dependent on us and our mistakes, and it's a collateral damage, like when he punishes
Well,
people in the Old
Yeah.
Testament. Like,
Anyways, all right, I gotta get going.
All right,
Peace
D-Man.
out. Yeah, I already ran my course because I already complained about this guy not doing logic. So I've had my fill. Good night, everybody. Be skeptical of all
Good
the
night, man.
things. Good night.
And
Later.
welcome to Christianity. Oh, darn it. I didn't
Well,
finish converting them.
too late. He got out of here in time.
All right,
Let's do it a couple more, and then I'm gonna.
I was going to say, let's go like 2 more minutes max, and then we'll go ahead and cut 2 more minutes on his video, not 2 more minutes here, and then we'll cut it off. Okay.
How do you know that God isn't evil instead? Well, because evil is not a thing the way good is. Just like cold is just a lack of heat, and dark is just a lack of light.
I am not. I'm a whole person, albeit a cartoon person, but a
Sadly, I think that was his best joke.
person nonetheless.
Evil is just a lack of good.
From defining things into existence to trying to define things out of existence. On the other side, why is good the actual thing and evil is the lack of it? Couldn't evil be the actual thing and good be the lack of evil? There is no justification as to why good is the actual thing and not the other way around.
So I don't like this answer of dark simply because you take something like hot and cold, where cold is the absence of heat, or you take something like light and darkness, where darkness is the absence of light. I understand that the person who came up with the original formula has to make a choice of which one's which, but this kind of brute fact, if you will, an explanation does work, and it would make sense that good would be the initial state. So Catholics, unlike Calvinists and unlike many Protestants, think that the initial innate state is goodness, and it's that original sin that messes things up, and it's baptism in Jesus that gets rid of those problems. So once you're baptized and you've accepted Jesus, the sins that you're committing, those are completely on you. That's not original sin messing things up for you. That's you've been saved, and now you're doing stupid shit. Now you're doing bad things on your own. That's why it's called a mortal sin. It's a sin that kills. You're entering back into death. So I don't think that Dark's objection here works, simply because it's not getting the human off the hook. It's putting the human more on the hook for the actions that they're doing. It's not blaming God. And I think God blaming is a mistake that happens in other forms of Christianity, where it's like, it's once saved, always saved. God's in control. It doesn't matter what I do. I think that is a mistake. BS.
So I would say, in the case of light and dark and heat and cold, we can scientifically measure, so we know that one is the absence of the other. So dark is the absence of photons and light waves, and cold is the absence of calories and energy being expended, because heat is just the byproduct of energy being expended. When it comes to good and evil, we're talking about metaphysical type descriptive things that don't have any way to measure. Because I'm a subjective moralist, I think good and evil is subjectively, like, what's good for one person will be bad for another person.
Well,
vice
do
versa.
you agree with the Calvinists that the natural state of the universe is evil?
I
Do you,
think
well,
that
do you
the
think
natural.
evil even exists? Let's ask that question first.
I think humans define things as evil. If I was gonna talk in metaphysical terms, I think the universe is amoral. Good or evil doesn't exist.
So
except
it's
for
suffering.
demise to
go back to
yeah,
Converted Man, is
I will.
suffering evil?
I will take the. This is dependent on the byproduct, but if it's an overall suffering, because I define it in the way a lot of atheists do, it's a net suffering, harm versus flourishing. And so you'll say, oh, well, like, go to the dentist, you'll have some pain, but it's for an overall well-being. So it's not just that it in itself is immoral or
So
moral, or evil
do
or
you
good.
think that the innate state or the natural state of the universe is suffering?
I think the natural state of the universe is amoral. I
But is
think
it suffering?
I think
Is
it's
pain the
both.
initial so is pain the neutral state?
No, there is no neutral state. It's an immoral state. I think what you're talking about is more in Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, stuff like that, where they believe that suffering is the existential, like,
Byproduct.
default,
Mhm.
and your goal is to escape suffering. And I think you get some of that in Christianity too, where they say, "Oh, it's evil."
So
But
evil is
evil in
when the suffering is intentional.
evil in Christianity isn't the same as humanistic measurement of evil. Evil in Christianity is disobedience to God.
So what is evil in a humanistic standpoint?
It would be based off of a suffering, a net suffering pain scale type of thing. But for Christianity and Judaism and the Abrahamic faiths, disobedience of God is what is evil. Like, you could be commanded to go kill somebody, like in the Old Testament, and that's a good thing, even though you're causing them suffering. And people try to rationalize it. Apologists do. They're
It's
like,
called the greater good, right?
"Yep, those people had it coming because they were doing something bad or whatever." But try to get them on the poof or drown thing. Like, well,
that
God flooded the whole planet, caused suffering worldwide. Was that a good thing or an evil
but that
thing? And
is
they'll say,
the Frank Turek, no objective evidence for good or evil. If your objective standard is not God, then anything could be good or evil, and so only that which God calls good is good, and only that which God calls evil is evil. I'm not making that argument. I'm just simply
no, I
restating
know,
it for the sake
but
of conversation.
I'm just a subjective moralist, so I don't believe that. I think evil and good, whatever I determine evil and good, is evil and good for me. But I have to compromise and work within a network of humanity and society, because other people have different ideas of what they think are good and evil. And this is where compromise and discussions and conversations and all this stuff gains the utmost importance, because I don't believe morality I think morality is dependent on two or more people. I don't think it is immoral how one treats themselves. I think that becomes what is called integrity. How you treat yourself is integrity.
So
How you
can
interact
someone
with
be? And I'm going to use a humanistic definition of evil, not a religious. Can someone on the pain scale, on the suffering scale, be evil on an island by themselves?
No. By definition, for me, morality is dependent. It's a social contract. It's a social agreement between two or more people. So we can have, if there was only one person on the earth, morality would cease to exist.
So for me, I would view that even the person on an island is subject to a greater morality. That would be my objection, but I don't have proof of that. I want to be very clear. I'm just saying that's from my point of
They
view.
might be if there's other living beings, because you can extend it to other sentient beings, how you treat a dog or how you treat an animal.
So
But
you
say
can't
those,
go around torturing mice on the island.
unless you are okay with it, then it's okay for you to torture animals. Because Law and Order and this morality stuff, it takes two parts. It takes the
So you don't think the animals' ethics, the ethics of nature, would play into any kind of form of morality? I'm not even
No,
talking about. I'm not
because
talking
then
about like. Okay.
no, not at all. Because then I'd have to call the lion immoral for eating gazelle.
But you could call the lion immortal for killing the leader of the pack or a secondary beta in the pack who is providing for that pack by
No,
it harming its own existence and the existence of the pack. He's no longer working for the greater good.
so you're going utilitarian morality
I mean,
structure with it.
that I was a utilitarian long before I was a Christian. So
Yeah, if you're going by utilitarian base of ethics, but you're also the one choosing that basis of ethics for yourself and morality. So you can
what is
go
the
to
Ray
that.
Comfort approach? Iron Charter is talking about the Ray Comfort approach. What is the Ray Comfort approach?
Have you ever told a lie? Have you ever
Oh,
stolen something? He just measures you against the 10 Commandments. And then
Uh,
if I was ever to get comforted, I would just ask him, like, hey, that
comforted,
only
comforted.
that only applies to the Jewish people. I'm not Jewish except for this cartoon.
Okay,
And so it doesn't apply to me.
all right, let's keep going. I want to try to get to 6 minutes. Okay, let's try to
All
get
right.
to 6 before we cut off.
Let's do it.
While the idea of evil as a privation of good might offer an explanation for moral evil, actions committed by moral agents, it may face challenges in explaining natural evil, suffering caused by natural disasters, diseases, and other non-moral factors.
We kind of went
Natural
over
evils
this right now
don't
in our
seem to be
convo.
mere absences of good, but involve real and tangible harm. His response seems to align with the notion that evil is a consequence of the misuse or absence of free will.
Again, we covered all
However,
of that.
this perspective assumes that all instances of evil are the result of free choices. Some philosophical discussions question whether this can fully account for all forms of evil, especially those that seem unrelated to human agency. Certain actions or states of affairs are not simply the absence of good, but could represent positive instances of evil. For example, intentional acts of cruelty, harm, or malevolence might be considered positive manifestations of evil rather than just the absence of good. His response presupposes an objective standard of goodness against which evil is measured. If there is an objective standard of goodness, it raises the questions about the nature of this standard and how it relates to
I'm
the
gonna let him
concept of
finish.
God. We can
Mhm.
question whether an existence of evil poses challenges to the notion of an all-powerful and all-good deity. Trying to define things into or out of existence is not the answer.
And for good to
Mhm.
Okay, I think we're gonna stop there for the night, but I don't want this to end right now. Let's go a little bit, maybe like 5 minutes or 10 minutes more, just to
Well, can I
close everything
just
out.
elaborate on his last points there?
Okay.
Me being a subjective moralist, a lot of people point to, oh, you must have an objective standard for morality. And we talked about utilitarian as a moral philosophy.
Hmm.
When anybody subjectively chooses a moral philosophy, they are choosing an objective morality. An objective is just what you need to have an objective morality. All you need to have is a goal.
So I want to be very clear. I'm married to an atheist. I do not believe that atheists cannot have moral standards or objective truth just because they're an atheist. I'm not someone who believes that. If I believe that, I wouldn't be able to marry my wife or trust her 1,000, more than 1,000 miles away when we're not living together currently. You know, you need to have objective moral standards and believe that the person you're with has objective moral standards for you to trust them. So I do not buy into that idea that somehow being an atheist means you're automatically a heathenist. I've dated heathenists. I've been friends with people who are heathenists, but the libertines and the heathenists are not atheists necessarily. There are plenty of spiritual uh, hedonist out there. So I think that's a very poor misnomer and a not misnomer, a very poor misattribution to atheists.
Well, to what I would think, because I think anybody who chooses a preference of moral system that they prefer, they are objective moralists. What I think what what the believers mean when we get into moral arguments is they're talking actually about absolute morality. And I don't believe in absolute morality. I do believe that you can subjectively choose an objective to follow for a goal with your morality, but not a like in the ether or a God given set of rules on how to properly live and stuff.
Oh, I mean, I don't think you're wrong necessarily. I just think that what happens is that when we have these conversations, I think that religious people who are more close-minded and atheists who I'm not talking about all atheists, but I mean like specific atheists who have trauma due to religion. I think that's where these arguments become more contentious. Because in here, you're talking about someone who's fully converted, so fully committed to Jesus Christ, someone who feels the wages of sin, who definitely feels bad when I fall to temptation. I definitely feel shame and guilt. Um, I still can have an open, healthy conversation with my atheistic friends without having to judge them. My best friend, who's currently an agnostic, I call him for moral advice all the time. It's not as if I'm like, it's not as if being religious separates me out from the world in that way. It separates me out from partaking in the world, but it doesn't take me out of participating in it and affecting the world. And I think when Christians forget that their actions also have consequences, I think that's when things get really ugly. I don't know. Maybe I'm over projecting from what you said, but But
No,
yeah.
I would agree. I think a lot of the point when the trauma comes with deconverts and stuff like that, and reflection upon the religion that they left, is the looking back at the stuff that is the common stuff, like the atrocities in the Old Testament, the flood, a lot of these things. And
Let me ask you.
wait. I'll be
Yeah.
quick. When the religious come and then they want to tell you that they're holding the keys to absolute morality, and you know what the book says, then it becomes a problem, because there are things like the slavery issue or whatnot where we've moved past that as a society, yet the Bible never did, and there isn't anything that condemns or can outright says don't own slaves, but we've moved past that as a society. It's hard for us to look at that and be like, well, that's the absolute morality. Like, he might have had regulations on it, but he didn't have an absolute problem with it.
Well, so I just think that that's just the wrong way to view the Bible. I don't view the Bible as prescriptive. It's describing the Jewish people's experiences with a higher deity. It's their interpretation of what they think God is, and that interpretation changes throughout time. That's why when after the Babylonian exile and they were looking back and trying to reconstruct their theology from the scraps of the destroyed temple, that's why they threw in so much pagan theology from the surrounding cultures. That's why that animism and polytheism is thrown in there and acknowledged, because they're trying to understand a society that they were cut off from, that they still view as their history. They still view that first temple Judaism as their history, even though they've been cut off from it for like 200, 300 years. So they're trying to recontextualize it, and they don't know that history. So based on their own folktale and their own mythology, they're using what they understand as the facts to tell the story, and then they're trying to project themselves into the minds of the authors that they're speaking for, and they're trying to say, well, what would they understand of reality? And I think that's important to understand, is that it is a projection backwards as much as a projection forward. And when we think that it's purely prescriptive and purely predictive, we are forgetting the context of which it was written in. And I think that is what apologists are trying to argue, but they let their theology, they let their biases overpower them. If you ever watched Adam and Stitch, they are letting their elephant drive. So they're trying to make this very nuanced point, but their elephant gets involved and they're like, now become Christian now, and it's like, hey, like you were going somewhere and then you just kind of lost the
Well, I would say if it's changing, then it seems like the character of God is changing, which means the moral structure and moral absolutes are changing. For some people, that might be a lack of stability and security. And then who's to say if gay is right or wrong? Who's to say if trans is right or wrong? Who's to say if slavery is right or wrong? Because
but I think
it seems like God mirrors the culture more than the culture should be mirroring the God.
Again, that's why Christians believe in progressive revelation. So you have this really interesting thing happen after the Second Temple, where when they're developing their theology and they notice that things are going wrong, and they're like, "But we're doing the rituals, but the rituals aren't working," and God through a prophet says, "I desire a sacrifice of the heart, not a sacrifice of the flesh," which will later get into Christianity, but in the Jewish context, it's because they're realizing, well, no, the rules can't change, the moral law can't change.
Maybe he meant literal heart.
So
like I eat your heart.
But the point is that these priests and mystics, and I'm going to call them theologians, even though that's not what they were. These theologians come to the understanding that it's not the rules that change. It's not God that changes. It's the rules that change. So their previous perspective is that God was like almost growing with them. And then they're like, well, no, that can't be. because we're still doing the same thing, but it's not working anymore. So therefore, we're wrong. God is right. It's God that's never changing. It's our understanding of God that's wrong. So we have to change our understanding and our expression of faith. And we have to look for these first principles that we need to live by. And this happens over and over again until a figure like Jesus comes around in the Roman period and recontextualizes it for the final time, until, Protestants come around and we're like, well, hey, here's another 50 different ways to interpret it.
Yeah, well,
But
final time, like that's arbitrary, because Muhammad said the same thing, and Joseph Smith, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, why stop
Joseph
at this
Smith
guy who says final?
well, to be fair, Jesus doesn't say final. It's the followers of him that say final.
Yeah, but
But
the followers of Joseph Smith and the followers of Muhammad say the same.
but Joseph Smith, and this is not just a Christian claim. This is the understanding of it as it relates to philosophy, not just religion. Jesus is claiming to be God, or the followers of Jesus are claiming him to be God. And he's the absolute perfect embodiment of sinlessness, even though we see him defy the cultural law that's in the Torah. But he maintains the moral law, and he is being true to the spirit of the moral law. That is super important to the theological metaphysical understanding of what Christianity is. So when you get to people like Joseph Smith and you get to people like Muhammad, they are heretics by the very nature that they are trying to change the metaphysical unchanging truth.
Except
That's
for
where
the fact earlier in the stream, I showed you a proof text that the Christians are using to establish this fact of a sinless moral being, and the proof text says he's going to be punished for his wickedness. But
again,
they just conveniently left that part out of it.
So again, we're talking about what is according to Christians, and I am a Christian, but I'm using the outside perspective for this.
And we just
sentence.
talk according to logic and reason, though, because according to this is what I'm
the
having a problem
final
with the Christian.
the final reinterpretation is going to be the Orthodox understanding, and if you're not part of the Orthodox understanding, you're a heretic. That's just how it goes. So any claim to Christianity that doesn't follow orthodoxy is by its very nature being a different claim, heresy. So Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mohammedans is what they used to be called. They're all going to be heretics under that standard. And that means any previous standard also becomes heretical by default. So the Jewish people end up having, according to Christians, the incorrect understanding, which you lovingly blasted me for when I said that before. But
Yeah,
that is the Orthodox Christian claim. And by Orthodox, I don't just mean Eastern Orthodox. I mean Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Chalcedonian. We're all making this claim to exclusivity. It's only in recent times, with the fracturization of the denominations in Protestantism, that's had to be reevaluated in the greater Christian context. But Catholics and Orthodox are still making this exclusivity claim. So when people foolishly misinterpret what the Pope is saying, or misinterpret what a metropolitan, the Pope for Orthodox people, when they purposely misinterpret these ecumenical statements, they are doing a disservice to the standard that's being set by Christians, because the Christian standard is not everybody gets to heaven. It's we hope everyone's in heaven. We hope that one, person from the Amazon gets converted. Is irresistibly ignorant, has an exception. We hope that B.S. Lewis has an exception, that he's just so burdened by his Protestant upbringing that's why he couldn't accept it, and God will make it exception. It's a hope. Yeah. It's not a promise. So it's almost dishonest on the parts of the apologists when they're trying to appeal to someone like you by saying, "Oh, but you could still get in." It's like, possibly, but that's not the hook. That's not the. It's follow Jesus, change your ways, and follow him. It's not. Yeah.
That's what Islam says. Like, it's not really up to you following the tenets. It's whether God wants you in the club or not. And that's essentially the same exact answer you're given from the
Well,
Catholics.
well, that's really more the Calvinist answer. The Catholics are saying that you have to
Oh, it's
follow
the
those
Islam
rules.
answer.
Yeah. But the Catholics do believe you have to follow the rules, and if you don't follow the rules, you're definitely not getting in.
Yeah.
Just
Well, Islam won't even say that. They'll say you can be breaking the tenets, and it's not up to that because God can make special exceptions to who He will. Like
in my study of Islam, I found it to be very, very Calvinistic, which I
Yeah,
know
I agree.
Calvinists don't like that, but yeah. All right, I think this is good. I think we went a good 2 hours. I think we had a good time. I hope to do it again next week.
Yeah, this is fun. Let's get some more people in here. I'll try to wrestle up some viewers for you.
All right. BS, hope you have a great night. It was great talking to you.
Always a pleasure.
And end stream.